welcome back to another episode of It Depends, I Guess podcast. I am Jackie.
I'm Caroline.
And at the back, we have
DJ.
Yay. Welcome back. Yes, in today's episode, we're talking about why we work. Why do you work?
Why do we work?
Why do we work?
Why do you work?
Why do I work? It's one of those existential crisis questions.
Yes.
That has been pinging in our brains for a while.
Yeah.
We've tried to watch a few things to try and kind of get us ready for this.
Yep.
So yeah, hopefully we have a good discussion, and I think it's going to be a rolling conversation too.
Yes.
Yes, but housekeeping as usual.
Housekeeping.
Yes, highlights, lowlights.
How the week has been.
Yes, and how your week has been.
Highlights.
All of the above. Yes.
The sun is finally out.
Yes.
I know we talk about the weather all the time. It's a safe topic, but honestly, I feel when the sun is out, I have a different personality. We are wearing dresses. Yes, finally we can show our
feet
legs.
We'll see the sun.
Yes, for those watching, you can enjoy our legs, shiny legs. Those who are listening,
enjoy our shiny
lovely.
voices.
Yes, we look lovely in our dresses. It's 25 degrees today.
Yes.
Which we haven't seen over 6-7 months
Yes.
or so. So
Yes.
we love when the sun is out. So so this week we went to the lake. We had a bit of good time with friends.
Yes.
And I love it when the sun is out.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody is happy. The atmosphere is light. I love it.
Yeah, people are just nicer.
Yes.
Yeah, people are just nicer.
People are laughing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
You know, and all these ladies are, this is the time of the year they're nice to you. So,
They smile at
they
you.
smile at you. They're like, hello. Oh, and to add on to that is, well, I saw the Northern Lights by mistake. I only found out the next day.
Is it the Northern Lights? I thought it's the solar winds.
So the solar, those solar storms.
Storms,
Yeah,
yes.
that's the cause of with a lot of geomagnetic energy running around.
Yeah.
So I remember we were sitting, and then I was like, this sky is turning pink.
Yes.
Then I told Lynn, one of our friends, I'm like, Lynn, is the sky pink? And Lynn looked and she's like, yeah, it is. And then we just carried on, and I kept looking back, and I'm like, what's that about? And I think I'd watched 2 days before about sometimes in, I think, Japan, there's this phenomenon that happens when they have too many LED lights. And I don't know if it have certain particles in the air, but the sky turns purple because of that interaction of the LED lights and whatever particles in the air. So in my mind, I remember sitting, looking at it and thinking, I'm like, oh, I wonder if it's a similar thing. But it never crossed my mind that it could be anything else. But it was really like clear. Then now the next day on social media, everyone is like, oh, there, you could see the lights from Zurich. I'm like, that's what it was. I told my brothers, they told me I was on acid. So that's not helpful.
Yes. I watched it in the news. Yeah. That was actually yesterday. I watched it in the news.
Yeah.
And some people, especially in the US, saw purple skies, very red skies.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can confuse this because for us, we normally see the skies turn orange when there's the storm from the Sahara.
Yeah,
So,
the Hamatan when the sand
Yes.
particles are blown into Europe.
Yeah. But fantastic.
It was really dope. DJ, any highlights or lowlights or?
Switzerland won the Eurovision.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. Ireland came second, sadly.
Yes.
Someone has to win.
I mean, true.
How do you feel about it? Because you live in Switzerland, you're Irish.
Yeah.
Which side are you on?
Look, I'm happy or someone got it.
Okay.
I'd rather the two of us.
You'd rather Ireland, if it's not Switzerland, it's Ireland.
Yeah, if it's not
Okay, good
Switzerland,
point.
it's Ireland.
Okay.
So it's all good. We are winning.
Okay.
Yeah. I think what caught my eye or highlight is the new president in Senegal, the young man. Recently gave a statement. He's like, I no longer want government officials to be meeting me at the plane. You know how when in African countries, I don't think I've seen this anywhere else, when a president lands, all the top officials are there lining up to like shake his hand.
Yeah.
He was like, you people don't have better things to do. So I stopped showing.
That's very progressive.
I was like, come on. I mean, to tie into what we were talking about in the episode of Black Tax and how we're saying that, the things that get handed over and we just do because it's what's been done.
Yeah.
I like to see people challenge and be like, yeah, honestly, People don't have things to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, go. It's not like because I'm landing, work can't happen. It's like, no.
Does it
Stop
happen in
showing up.
Kenya? Now I think about
Yeah.
it. I know Moi time.
Yeah.
They used to, well, and I'm really old if I remember Moi time.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember in the
those were
news.
difficult times.
Yes, growing up, and every time Moi would land, it would even be in the news
Yeah.
because everybody would come onto the airport,
Yep.
at the plane actually when
Yes.
when it's taxiing in.
Yes.
They are waiting there with the red carpet,
Yes.
handshaking and everything.
And you would know who the president has fallen out with or not.
Because they would not
of
shake their
who's the who's the first on the line was hierarchy. And then sometimes if he had beef with someone, he would skip.
He would not
wouldn't
shake their
their hand. I was like, wow. So that's why we used to watch it. I was like, oh, who's in trouble today?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was like, oh, no. You people find things to do. Stop coming to meet me at the airport.
That's quite progressive.
Yeah. So that was really cool. All right. Now, today I'll have my laptop with me because it's a serious topic.
It is a very no. You have the laptop, so you're exuding what it is to work.
Seriousness.
The seriousness of working.
Versus if you look here, maybe I've just drawn bunnies and I'm looking at. Maybe I'm just scrolling on Twitter.
Yeah.
No. So just jumping into the topic for today. And a big reference. One of the things we watched was a documentary on DW.
Deutsche Welle.
Yeah. There's a documentary called Burnout. When does work start feeling pointless?
Yes.
I think it's really dope. It's a short piece. Well, it's 40-something minutes. I think it captures a small bit of a bigger issue. I don't think it's something that can be tackled in just one small documentary. But I also like that some of their statistics were very, you can see they had a lot of diversity in locations because I think they sampled employees from like European countries, from African countries, from Asia, from the US. So it was really good to see that normally a lot of these things just represent the US or Europe. So that's one thing I liked about it, but we might reference it a lot.
Yeah. Deutsche Welle, for those who might not know, is a German station.
Media house.
Media house.
Yeah.
They have TV, they have radio, and actually, growing up in Kenya, we had a lot of Deutsche Welle shows and that were actually sold to our national TV station. And what I love about them, even up to today, they do really in-depth documentaries. So if you go to their YouTube channel, you can find any kind of topic, and they do some deep level research. So it's a really good documentary about burnout.
I really like their stuff. It's never shallow. Okay, so let's start from the very beginning and just define
in the beginning.
the beginning. Let's define work. Okay, so dictionary definition. So an activity involving mental or physical effort done in order to achieve a purpose or result. And then if you take that to the level of where we are at now, is also to perform those efforts regularly for wages or a salary. Yeah. So the outcome at the end of the day here is some fiscal returns. Yes. Although even volunteer world, I guess you do have some fiscal returns. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It might not be in monetary value.
Yeah, true. Or even like internships where the value is your experience.
Yes.
That's I wonder if do unpaid internships I assume in this day and age, are there a lot of unpaid internships or are they mainly paid internships?
I think it depends, I guess, on the country you are in. Because I know if I was to speak of my experience in Kenya, back in the days, but compared to now, I know they pay, but they pay very little just to get you to survive, or maybe to make the transport to and from work. But the more you move to the West, to Europe, to America, if you're an intern, you're actually paid a good amount of money. You're almost you're salaried actually. Very well salaried.
That's interesting. I'm trying to remember my intern. Internships. The university obtained ones where you have to like either the university helps you get it, or if you get yourself, it's actually counting towards your grading at the end of your studies. Those ones were not paid, but if you are a student who's being supported by the Higher Education Loans Board, the government would give you a stipend.
Yeah.
So for transport, for lunch, because then a lot of these places, like my first internship, a lot of like that was a small like survey firm. So they truly just want bodies, but people to come and like work and help. And for them, it's also a way to give back. But they also were really small entities. So they didn't pay. I think also it's because the generation they were, they really believed in like, you should be glad you have a position here. So don't ask for anything. So no. All right. So I'll give the stats later. So bear with me as I go through like some historical facts or things, right? So like when we talk about why we work, so let's just go first into the historical reasons why we worked or work. So there's one area that's more about fulfilling basic needs.
Yeah.
Under that, it's survival, right? So work was essential for survival. So like hunter-gatherer period, right?
Yeah.
And then there was part of it was a division of labor. So if we're living as a community, certain things that need to be done. Planting has to happen, harvesting. Maybe somebody's taking care of the cows. Someone is healing. Someone is praying, I guess. So that as part of, I think maybe society was becoming a bit more complex. So division of labor was a part of why work happened, like as a community to move forward.
Yeah, and this is the origin of work in its existence. Like even if we are talking about pre-human as we know ourselves, like there had to be somebody who goes out to, the men actually used to go out and hunt. Then the women maybe would cook or something or take care of the kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then now when they're staying home, even as the women are staying home, they realize like, I can't do everything. So we come together and start dividing labor, maybe based on skill set or whatever. So that was all based on fulfilling basic needs.
Yes.
Then there's a part around shaping societal structures. So for example, social hierarchy.
Yeah.
So work became a way of establishing social structures. So for example, I think if you look at the Egyptians, like the pharaohs, so they were managing like construction projects. Then you had the slave people who were now cutting the stones, building things. So it was a way to differentiate between levels, status of people.
Yeah.
Right.
And also there were families like in some of the earlier structures of work is you had like a tribe, let's say a family that was known to do this kind of work. So like it would be people who did good things with leather, and that would be, if there are people who did things who are masons, they would do yes.
Which is how I learned the name Smiths. Usually it was some sort of like blacksmiths.
Yes.
Schumacher were shoemakers.
Oh, Schumacher was Oh,
yes, the name Schumacher.
Schuhe.
Yes.
German. Yeah. Okay.
German is getting there. But yeah, apparently some of these names came from people used to do this thing.
Yes. And I think that's when work had become. The division was quite well known. These people do this thing, and everybody gets really good at this one thing.
You specialize.
Yes, and then you go down. It's passed down the families.
Yeah. Then there was under shaping social structures. There was economic power.
Yeah.
So wanting to control your own. This is now when people now are starting to identify as a nation or whatever the region would be, whatever we call countries now.
Yeah.
But as a nation, as a region, it was a way of building economic power. So we want to be able to have our own grains. We want to be able to, you don't want to keep barter trading with people kind of thing. Then social identity that ties to the Smiths, etc. And then there's other additional considerations. So this is now out of the two, shaping social structure and fulfilling basic needs.
Yeah.
Outside of that, there's additional reasons that came in, like religion and values. So religious beliefs and then societal values also help like influence perception of work. And then leisure and creativity, where yes, this was your work as a smith, but then you also had leisure time. And then now that also became a way of kind of why we work. But that was kind of not doesn't fall under the two major ones.
Yeah.
Then now if we go to the evolution of work itself,
Yes.
now we start with, again, early societies, early days, where it's survival and labor.
Yeah.
That is purely how it was running. Then we moved on to like social, like ancient civilizations.
Yes.
So that's where you started to see the rise of bureaucracy starting to happen. And that's also where the social structure things started coming in. That by default came with bureaucracy, because then now it becomes, we are the people who do this, you are the people who do that. And society started associating those with different levels of importance. Then now we went to the medieval times. This is now fully agrarian society. Most of the world was driven by agriculture. That was a big part of it. Then comes the Industrial Revolution.
I think this is the most now.
Yes.
Where we can draw a lot of
That is now,
comparisons.
yes, now that is, now more recent memories. That is where there's a huge shift to now factories and manufacturing and how you can replace that with like processing, right?
Yeah.
And also that was the birth of the labor movement. When they started thinking about, if all these people do these things, there needs to be laws to protect these people and the things that they do.
Yeah.
Then comes the 20th century. Now, 20th century now is also the beginning of the information age and the digital revolution. That comes the 20th century. So where now there's also a rise in service economy. That's where the whole concept of the 40-hour work week was born. And then
was it? I thought that was born in the industrialization.
Apparently, it came after in the 20th century. Yeah.
But industrialization, isn't that what happened in the 70s and the 60s after the wars, and everybody had to go into work to try and build back the economy.
Yeah.
So there had to be lots of factory workers.
Yes. But I think in the push to build the economies, there weren't strict ways to actually protect.
Yes.
A lot of things were much more maybe national looking, like, we're trying to get back as the Germans into blah, 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 blah. But there wasn't a really good system that was looking out for workers.
If I was to... I think when some of these studies actually specifically focus on Western countries, I wonder if it was the same for us in Africa, because we don't talk much about industrialization post-colonial.
So that's a good point.
Yeah.
So I do think that even as these things were happening, they were not happening equally in all places.
Yeah.
Because in the 20th century, when digital, maybe let's put it this way, there was, maybe it was happening in certain industries, but then those industries were not predominantly in our regions, if that makes sense. Because if I think about the 20th century now, when like computers came in and it's like, now we're going into the information age. Yeah, that also affected like banking systems in our countries and things like that. But then the impact was not as large because banking was not a large part of the economy. But agriculture was still a very large part of the economy. So maybe the things were happening in relatively the same time periods.
But a bit slower.
And then it depends on what was the majority of... If you're a country that was heavy in, like in the Industrial Revolution, you're a location that was able to adjust and have major industries, that works well for you. But then now for us, maybe even electricity was not even maybe a thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It doesn't seem like it was a...
Yeah, if I was to draw context from what I know and how we progressed, like when we talk about the industrialization, at that point in time, yes, we did have the industries and, like factory workers, but they were way less and we were more concentrated on agriculture. So it's like we were almost a step behind.
Yes.
And then somewhere in the 80s when already like computers had started getting introduced in the West, we were now catching up on industrialization. And that's why you had a lot of
Yes.
factory workers, big industries coming up, manufacturing actually being moved
Yeah.
into in country, because sometimes a lot of imports was happening. Yes.
To be fair, we're still not a big industrial
Yeah.
region,
Yeah.
right? So I do think what happened is when other places were moving, we were probably still being colonized.
Yeah.
And we were mostly agricultural,
Sure, yeah.
even for the colonizers,
Yeah.
right? And I think it makes sense because climate-wise,
Yeah.
our regions are
We had to
prime for that.
we were producing the raw materials that
For
actually
them.
were taken
That they're
for
going
the
to
industries.
Yes, exactly. So
Yeah.
we were prime in
Yeah.
that we don't have the seasons. It's like it's just rainy or dry. So
Yeah.
you're able to produce for a longer period of time
Yeah.
and at a much cheaper cost because you don't have to think about a greenhouse when it snows.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about any of those things. So it's like your barrier to entry is so low. So I guess they are thinking, what's the point of building industries here? This land we can use for
the raw
for farming.
Yeah.
So I think that was what was happening. But even when now the information age came, computers early in the days, also the uptake was not that high in our regions. But when phones became computers, when the phones came, that's why they say our regions were leapfrogging
Yeah.
the process. Instead of going like, oh yeah, industrialization and then this thing and then this thing, it was just like, oh, we just leaped to
Yeah.
information age because the phones became cheaper. The power of a computer was available on your device.
Yeah.
So we just leapfrogged and it's like, well, now we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even then, it's still not cheap to run industries in a lot of our regions.
Yeah. So much bureaucracy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, so 20th century, that's early information age. There was a service economy, 40-hour work week and labor laws now were set in place. Then now, modern era, which is the latter part of the digital revolution which we're in, is fully driven by tech revolution.
Yeah.
The gig economy is a big part of that, remote work.
Can maybe there are people who might not know this, but what's a gig economy?
So my understanding of the gig economy is an economy that's very based on, it's not, you're not a monthly salaried person,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. You have to, it's based on short-term projects.
Yeah.
So which I guess we would call gigs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's based, it's much more, I always think of more like consultant. In my head, a consultant is a prime gig economy. I also think of, in the current age, influencers.
Yes.
That space is very gig economy based. So your income is not regular. It's not regulated.
Yeah.
Like if you're a salaried or employed employee.
Yeah,
if
you
that
paid
makes
for
sense.
the work you're doing,
Yeah.
and that work doesn't come as often.
Yes.
It can be a lot, it can be less. Like
Yeah.
there's no aligned structure to how that
it could
work
be
comes
regular.
along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also that whole concept of work-life balance, that's all
Yeah.
very modern era.
Yeah.
And then our future of work is now where we're going into like remote work versus being in work and AI and, how that's going to change also the type of job and the job economy. That's all now in the future space. So let's jump into some individual thoughts. What is your relationship to work and how was it introduced to you?
Okay. Work was introduced to me in primary school. And I think this is probably the process that almost every African child goes through, especially if you're studying in an African primary school, is that you're told study hard so that you can get a good job. So your work is correlated with how well you put in time into studies. So I knew I was studying to go work. So that's how I thought about work in essence. So the goal was study, get the best marks, get the best university degree, and then I land a job that will sustain me. So work sustain me and also be good income. Yeah.
And was that in any way aligned with what you're passionate about? Was there
there was nothing about passion. I don't think we were ever told.
Were you ever asked, what do you like to do, Carol?
I don't think I remember, and I think we talked about this briefly, but I'll give a bit of a background. Is that when we were growing up, there will always be this question of what do you want to do, or who do you want to be when you grow up? And this would be a question asked, especially when we were self-aware, maybe from around 10 or so. And it would always be one thing. Oh, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a teacher. Like you would draw from what was around you. But for me, I knew what was around me, nothing was exciting. So I remember telling my teacher one day when she asked that question is, I want to be a secretary because that's the only thing that was not standard.
That was different.
It was different and it was very rare. But it's because I couldn't put into words what my passion was. But that's the only thing that was very distant to me, but that didn't exist in that commonality of other careers. But anyway, I turned out to be an engineer. A computer engineer. That's where I ended up. But that's how work for me was introduced and how I knew I had a passion, but I didn't know what that passion was.
Okay, because I was going to ask you, is there something that as a kid, when you look back, that you liked to do, and then maybe now that you've grown up and you've had the privilege of living in like Europe, and you see somebody doing it and you're like, man, I didn't know that thing could end up being a career. It's just that maybe because it's not something you never saw around you, or even if you've not seen it, if you look back, do you think to yourself, oh man, I used to like doing this thing? I wonder.
Honestly, I don't think I can call out anything like that because I was the carbon copy of what 844 system, so our education system wanted.
Yeah.
So I never thought outside of what I was being told by the teachers. I think I was never given a chance to even explore. The only thing I can think about is I loved drawing. I loved cartoons. Like I think every kid loves a cartoon. But that to me, I knew I could have harnessed that go into more graphics because I love graphics even right now.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
So I could have harnessed that if I knew what it was. But I don't know. I don't feel like I had any idea. Maybe that's what it is, what I'm talking about. Graphics and all that. Yeah.
This is the same question for you. Like, what is your relationship to work, and like, how was it introduced to you as a young one?
I think the main thing was to make money. How that making money came about. I was also like you. I left Zimbabwe when I was 14, and then got here, and then that's when my options really opened up as far as what I can work and do. I saw people making money out of the things that I loved, and that pushed me in that direction straight. When I left Zimbabwe, I was just learning because that's what my mom said I should do, and the way you attach it to success in life, I'm not sure I thought of it in that way. I just thought make enough money to keep the lights on and keep food in your belly, and then that's it.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking, and then when I got here, I found people can make money playing music.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I was like, that's the direction I pushed myself, and I pushed blindly, where I even put myself into problems just to make sure this works. I'm not a millionaire yet, still working on it. But happy, you know.
Yeah. So, do you think if you stayed in Zim, would you be in the same line?
No chance.
When you were in Zim, if you were to stay, what direction do you think you were going towards?
I can't even.
Corporate job somewhere with a tie. I can't imagine you behind the desk.
Job.
Possibly. My uncles would have put me in some office, just pressing enter. No offense to those who press enter. But I would, I was just saying to you now, I love DJing, and I would do it for free.
Yeah.
It's just that I need to pay rent, and these Jordans are not going to buy themselves. That's it. That's my. Yeah.
What about you? Yeah.
I think I'm similar. Yeah. Where And I think at the time I was going through a process where I was sitting down and thinking to myself, what is it that if I was not told, if I was just let into this world loose and free, what would I be? I can't think of it. All I knew is I liked playing as a kid.
Yeah,
That
me
my
too.
memory ends there. We liked playing. That was it. My biggest punishment is if you can't go play. That was torture. So I'm similar in that we are truly the ideal product of the 844 system where we get out the things that you want and you're forced into where you should be.
Yeah.
And also dictated by parents, right? Where they had seen that certain jobs or certain degrees, if you end up in that job sector, had been proven to always provide.
Yeah.
So it was, you should be a doctor, you should be an engineer. At worst, you should be an architect. Those are the options. And so we used to laugh. I always tell people, I was told I can do anything I want as long as an engineer, an architect, or a doctor. And I'm like, okay.
You know something you've mentioned over there is that for us, because you grew up in Nairobi and you started school, you schooled in Nairobi. I studied deep in Murang'a. Those are not the things. Murang'a is in central Kenya.
Yeah.
Architect.
Those are not the options.
It was not a vocabulary that
Yeah.
existed in what you could be.
Yeah.
Architect or even engineer was, because I think everybody was so concentrated on the very old careers,
Yes.
on what work looked like. And also there were no examples around us. There were no
Yes.
architects.
It was
there were
what
no
you see.
engineers.
Yes.
Yes.
And the reason for me is because my mom's brother, who's an architect, very successful.
Yeah.
So the example was, you see, like Uncle so-and-so,
Yeah.
he's an architect. So we know that works. Your Uncle so-and-so is an engineer. We know that works.
Yeah.
Go in there.
Yeah.
Your other Uncle so-and-so is a doctor. That works. Go in there. So it was based on what they've seen
Yes.
as those ones, you're guaranteed to be okay.
Yeah.
And I think also my parents, it was a job that you can be independent. So they always said, yes, get a career where at the end of the day you can be self-employed.
Yeah.
So they pushed those ones because, again, for example, like my uncle, by that time he had his own farm, right? So it was because they'd seen people who've gone into employment, made money in those things, then have become self-employed and still make money. That's where you should go, right? So that's basically how he ended up where we are at. And it was interesting in that there's also this notion of you have to work hard, right? So nothing comes for free.
Yeah.
So there was also that concept of work involves working hard, not just working. You have to put 110% into it. You can't just
Yeah.
dilly-dally and then somebody will write you a check, which technically that is what in corporate.
I was just laughing. Does anyone here have an uncle that you don't exactly know what he did, but he was popping? He had stuff.
Yeah.
We had neighbors like those.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was like, where's the example for that uncle?
No,
Just
that's
do
the
whatever
one
he
for-
does. That's the one we don't talk about what he does.
No, because they always felt like that's that one, the wheels will fall off. And when the wheel fell off,
I don't know.
our
Actually,
parents
yeah,
would cover their lifestyle.
Yeah.
So that's why they were never mentioned.
Yeah.
So there's also the concept of like working hard. What else that stands out to me? I think those things, so similar to you, things are very much put in the, you'll say you can be anything but within this box.
Yeah.
That's all you can be. And then also, interestingly, I think there was also an interesting correlation between people's personality and what they do. So if someone was a doctor, by default, they were a good person. Oh yeah, that so-and-so is, they're a doctor. That's a very good, and that gives you, so it was also tied to social standing.
Yeah.
So I think it was important to them that, yes, you get into a lane that you'll make money, but also you'll be respected in society. Maybe that's part of coming from my mom's side. She's Luo, so societal standing is important. So there was that.
Yeah.
Okay, now now that you've talked about how work was introduced to you and your relationship to it, has that changed over time?
Ooh.
And how?
So that thing you mentioned about working hard, I think because that was instilled in me so much, I consider myself a hard worker. I have drawn pride in being a hard worker over time. And also I've chastised myself when I'm not a hard worker. And now it's gotten to a point where even in not necessarily career-wise, like even on personal stuff, I want to be a hard worker. So like it's translated to everything else. Now, I'm not saying being a hard worker is a good thing, because I honestly don't think hard working is the only thing you need. You need to work smart. And I wish I learned how to be a smart worker. Yeah. These are things I'm learning now when I'm older, much older, how to work smart. How to spend time actually looking at what you're enjoying working on and whether it's serving you. These are not things we learned. We only learned about work hard, work hard, work hard.
Yeah.
I think I need to turn on the mic. I think we also discovered after COVID that you don't have to work 100%. I know a lot of people, even in the company that I work for, they don't work 100%. Nobody works 100% anymore. Everyone is at 60.
Everybody's at 60.
Everyone is at 60. Since I was out at home and getting paid 80%. And they thought that, then why am I pushing myself to work 5 days a week? So I'd rather work half that, collect half the money, go and do something else that I enjoy doing, pick up a hobby that I can get paid for. Then I'm happy out.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, the saddest part about working hard is in my career, and I'm talking about less than 5 years ago or so, there are days I will feel so unproductive that I feel I didn't earn my salary because I didn't work hard enough. And it's something that's so psychological about working that sometimes you don't think about, but it affects you, like from how work was introduced to you, how schooling system was introduced to you, how you see your value as you go on is so tied to some of these things that were instilled.
Yeah. I relate to that a lot. And even the guilt of not feeling like, oh, I didn't do in my mind what should be 110%, which means I've earned what I'm getting paid. And even when I said moving towards the whole concept of, okay, I need to work smarter and not work harder. But even the working smart came with guilt. So if I'm able to achieve something, so let's say normally to achieve this thing, I'd have to have 25 meetings and travel 10 times and like send 10 emails every day and blah, 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 blah. Once I get an outcome of, okay, this project has been greenlit, I'm like, I deserve it.
Yeah.
But then when a similar project comes around, and because I have a relationship that I have built in the work sector, and I hit up someone, I'm like, oh, hey, I'm working on this thing. Would this relate to your role in your company at the moment? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. This makes sense, blah, blah, blah. And that takes a week. And contract signed. That bothers me. It's like, that was too easy.
Yes.
That's not deserving.
Yes.
So even if people tell me, that project went through, good job, I wouldn't take the compliment.
Yes.
I'd be like, oh, no. I didn't really, it was just a contact.
Yeah.
So I didn't really work for it. But I never used to see that, hey, the years you've taken to build a relationship with that person, to the point that where you can hit them up and they know, I've worked with Carol before. If she's hitting me up, it's something that I know is valuable to my company.
Yeah.
We can jump all this red tape. Sure, have the project. You put in work. That's not.
Yeah.
So I think I've started to learn to understand. No, that's also work.
It's also part of.
It's also
You've
part
built
of
the basis.
Yes.
And that's also work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So similar to you, my relationship with work is changing that way in terms of it's more psychological in terms of being okay with working smart is also okay. And also, you don't need to be at even 80%, right? Because then you'll work yourself to death.
Yeah.
And for what purpose?
Yeah.
So I think my relationship with work is morphing that way, but also morphing in terms of wanting to do things based on what I want. And less about paying the bills. I'm not saying paying the bills is not important. And wealth is not important. I want to be very rich, to be clear. But in addition to that, I also want to be sort of aligned
Yeah.
to that. And honestly, part of it maybe is me feeling like, okay, I've put in X number of years in this working hard lane and I've been able to acquire this much wealth. And I feel like, at this point,
Yeah.
the least I can do for myself is just go chase the things I want to do.
Yeah.
Also, it could be midlife crisis. I can't tell you exactly what it is.
Also, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, yeah?
That's true.
That's you've moved steps
I've
higher.
moved steps where my needs have changed.
Where it's no longer the basic needs that
Yeah.
you moved. Yeah.
To be honest, and here's the other thing, I also don't know if I was living in Kenya if I'd feel the same way.
Yeah.
I think it's also I live in a place where I'm able to see everyday examples of people just doing whatever they love. I remember meeting somebody who composes music for films.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, this is a full-time job. He's like, yeah. I'm like, how many films are being made in Switzerland that you're able to make it full-time? But he's like, no, the fact that the country has certain provisions for people who are doing things connected to culture. So I think they get a stipend to make sure you'll have your rent covered. You'll have your, then for example, the Swiss laws push for Netflix to operate in this country, you're required to have X amount of local content.
Yeah.
Right? Part of that reason is because it forces this Netflix and these streaming services to purchase local content. And then once you provided the provision, it means local content can be made.
Yeah.
When local content is made, this person who's making music for films always gets a job.
Yeah.
Right? So it's also understanding that, I now happen to live in a place where I'm seeing people able to pursue this and the environment encourages it. So it gives me less fear to go and pursue whatever I want versus if I was living in Kenya, there's no way because they still have to be like, no, I have to be pragmatic. The rent has to be paid. Things have to be done.
Yeah.
So I think also it's an outcome of the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's jump into the now, right? So we've talked about historically work and its evolution. And now we see there's been a shift whereby there's still the basic needs. Of course, there's the basic needs in terms of your
shelter, food, security.
Yes, provision. But then there's been a growth in this part where there's actually the social status of it all and also the purpose, right? And I wonder if part of it is because even when we're being told by parents, go into these lines, that was a period where also maybe it's also where we lived. But anyway, where we came from.
Yeah.
That was a period where if you did a degree in biology, you will go be a biologist.
Yes.
If you did your degree in architecture, you'll go be an architect. If you did a degree in electrical engineering, you'll go and be an electrical engineer. Then something shifted there. And the basic needs part shot up. So if we're graduating 1,000 electrical engineers, and there's only 200 jobs for electrical engineers, 800 are not just going to sit around and wait for more jobs. And certain sectors saw the gap there. So for example, in Kenya, and in my university, because we're mostly a science and tech university, 90% of engineering, we were mostly engineering students, a lot of the companies that would come to recruit were auditing companies. So the PwCs, Deloitte, KPMG would
did
come and
that.
hire engineers. Because you're fresh from university, our education is great at theory. So our
Yes.
brains are stretched every which way. So they know they can take you to accounting classes and you can become an accountant quite well.
Yeah.
And then after that, there was the banking sector. So banks used to come and recruit a lot of the engineers. So what you end up happening is only 10% of engineering graduates actually go and become engineers.
Yeah.
The rest, because then now there was a huge disparity between like just what was available in the country. So basic needs like shot up. And then recently now with the digital age and everything coming in, we start seeing also now a push towards purpose and being aligned with
What you
want. And I don't know. What is your thought? What are your thoughts there?
It's something interesting you've brought up about how most of these companies ended up doing to graduates, because actually to work in any company, the entry point back in the days was a degree. Right now, I am not well attuned to what's happening within like people who graduate, but I know there's a lot of self-employment that's happening. And also there are lots of people who have no work, so they have to depend on gig economy.
The gig economy, yeah.
Make small gigs. Another thing that's happening, probably we'll talk about later, is there are lots of remote jobs that exist. Actually, they're called remote tasks. So, yeah. So people are upskilling. Even if you have a degree and you can't find the job that you want, there could be a company outside of maybe our continent, maybe in the US or mostly in the US, that are looking for maybe somebody with that skill, and they can give you small tasks.
Yeah.
So it's actually sort of gig work.
Yeah.
You're paid by the tasks that you're doing. And there are also people who are doing freelancing.
Yeah.
So that's another form of what work has transitioned to.
Yeah.
So you sign up to, I think, websites like Fiverr, and then
freelancer.
then you get some freelancing jobs. So you're basically self-employed and you do small tasks again in a different way.
Yeah.
And in the world of AI, what people don't know about is that most of the times, like these AI generated images, somebody is actually proofreading some of this.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of work that's being handed out to
to train, or you have to train the models.
You have to train the models, yes. You have to proofread and say, I generate that was a dog. Yes, it is a dog that was generated.
Lest you search for black lady and then it shows a dog.
It's not all machine that's doing that. AI. I just remembered the Amazon story, the Amazon stores.
There's a story about Amazon stores. There was actually, you went to one.
Yes, I went to one in London.
Tell them about the concept of the store you went to.
So the Amazon, I don't know if they call them self-checkout, self-service stores, but basically what you do is you scan your Amazon card or Amazon account number before you enter. The concept is that you can take anything from the shop and you don't need to do checkout.
Yeah.
Nobody's billing you.
Yeah.
You just pick an item and then you leave the store, and then it's automatically charged to your Amazon account. Yeah. So anyway, my friend and I actually went to London. I was in London visiting my friend, and I saw the store. I was very curious. So we entered the store. There was a bit of a hassle. We entered the store on her account because she had the Amazon UK account. And we picked a few things. I picked a wine. I put it back. I picked like some apples. I put them back. And then we wanted to see if we can dupe
test
the system.
Yeah.
But we were not able to dupe the system. But it turns out
that it was, and they were pushing it that it was AI.
They were pushing it. It was
that
AI.
It was, and turns out it was. It had cameras, and they had people in India.
Yes.
who were just doing.
AI was actually
Excellent.
all
That's
Indian.
really good.
All
Because I
Indian.
thought, how does that work? So like, if you walk in with your friend and then your friend decides to pick up something,
Yeah.
and then you halfway walk to the door and then you change your mind,
Yeah,
you put
you
it
would
back.
go back and put it back. We did that. and then we picked something else.
Yeah.
And then they didn't charge you.
It calculated exactly what
The exact
we
items.
left with.
Yeah, which
We
they were
left
very
with.
impressed by because they're like, man, this AI is advanced. Yeah, because there's
I was
cameras.
like-
There's people with cameras seeing what you're doing.
But the way
And
they
the
sold
billing you is because somebody has verified on camera. But the way they sold it that there's no one.
yeah.
It's all independent of any human interaction
Yes.
or human interference, basically.
So
Yeah.
there's someone actually watching from the background.
Yeah. So
Yes.
when she's taking off the wine and putting it back, by the time she's leaving, there's somebody on the other side on the camera knowing like, okay, they only took one wine and one apple. Yeah.
They had sold that concept so weirdly. It's like, yes, we do have the cameras, but the cameras do facial recognition and they can see you signed in and then you picked this. Like it looks at your
They were
hand
doing
movement.
facial recognition. It's just a person
Somebody
behind
the
there.
computer. Yeah, but I don't know where that came from. But AI and
Oh yeah, no, you're talking
it
about
does-
tasking.
Yes.
Then again, it doesn't need to be live as well because one guy could look at 15 customers. It's over a few hours. You get the bill later anyway, so it's not immediate.
No, the bill is
The
immediate.
bill was
It's
immediate.
immediate. Is
So
it?
the moment you leave the little gate to get
Yeah,
out
yeah.
of the shop,
You get a ting.
you get a ting, you check your
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And I could trust that. I don't know if I tell the story about. Should I tell this story? This is not tied to this. It just reminded me about this Amazon thing. I was visiting my brother
Yeah.
in Houston, and then sometimes if I'm going there and I need to buy some things that are not available on, say, Amazon this side, because Amazon US is like a mega store. It's like
Yeah.
a Target. You can get anything.
Yeah.
Pretty good things. So I'll shop. Then it's delivered to my brother's house. When I get there, I
Yeah,
can
the
pick
stuff
up
is
the
there.
items or whatever. So my Amazon account had my address, my home address regularly here, but also had my brother's address. And then actually my sister-in-law, because my brother is not good at collecting packages. So then I was visiting them and then I was buying a gift card for one of our friends. It was her birthday. So I was buying her gift card. So put in the details. I'm like, oh, this amount, blah, blah, blah. And it's a gift card. So it's digital. It goes to her email. So then I did what I was doing and I was in my room. So submitted everything. So the email come into my account, like, yeah, this has been sent to this person. So go to the living room, my sister-in-law is there with my brother. Then my sister-in-law, her phone rings, she picks it up. Then I hear her saying my name. I'm like, so I turn around, I'm like, yeah. And she's on the phone. I'm like, why is she saying my name?
Yeah.
But she's saying my name like full government names. I'm like, this is odd. So I come to where she's seated. And then she says, hold on, she's here. Let me give her the phone. I'm like, what? I take the phone. It's someone from Amazon. They're like, yeah, we are calling to verify the gift card you just bought. I'm like, you called my sister-in-law's number.
Oh.
They're like, yes. Why? So, because I was buying the gift card for somebody who lives in the UK,
Yes.
so I was buying it on the Amazon UK.
Uh-huh.
But because I need to verify, they looked at my home address and I live in Switzerland and it's 2 a.m. here.
Yes.
I was in the US, I was in
Yeah.
Houston, so a few hours behind. So he thought, let me not call her because it's 2 a.m. But I need to verify. So he goes through my Amazon account and sees
All the
numbers and sees, oh, okay, this there's an address and number here that's the US in Houston. And calls and picks my sister-in-law's number, I think from her Amazon account. It was the weirdest shit.
But that's a breach of privacy.
Let me tell you, I'm like, what? And I put him on like speakerphone. And I'm like, so why didn't you call my number? He's like, because it's 2 a.m. in Switzerland. I'm like, then send a text. Block the transaction until the morning, then send a text when I wake up so I see, hey, was it you who was
Yeah.
trying to purchase? If it is you, put this code in or whatever, or call Amazon or call something, or email me and say, hey, we saw this activity, we're not sure. So if your logic has told you it's 2 a.m. in Switzerland, let me not bother the person. But then you called somebody else to verify my card details. I was shocked.
No, that sounds like actually an untrained person handling something like this, because that's a lot of breach of privacy
It is.
that you could actually sue for.
It really is. And I was just like, dude, I don't know if I should report you. He's like, no, ma'am, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, I've been in the tech space. I know people who have worked in that sector where they've had to deal with customers.
Yeah.
And I understand sometimes the incentives is the number of cases closed.
Yes,
So they
yes,
want to leave any cases pending or whatever. So I was just like, okay, I get it. But still, I was hella shocked. But then that made me, So after that, I went into my Amazon account and removed every other address that you have. So even if, let's say, you normally travel to the UK and you have a friend who's living in the UK and maybe you send stuff from Amazon there, don't keep that account don't keep it in there.
Oh, I didn't know they have so much access and they can
Go remove it. Just keep your home address only.
And only add when need be and then delete it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's smart.
Good to know.
Anyway, that was like tangent.
That was a small segue.
Okay, so I was about to say something now. In the now, also, a big thing that has influenced work across all sectors is tech.
Yeah.
The tech revolution has definitely had its impact across the board, not just tech in itself, in that many industries are now leveraging tech, but also tech companies and the way they work and this whole concept of, so if it's this whole concept of like flat organizations or whatever it is, a big part of it has changed the footprint of work. And especially now if you look at startups and tech, and this documentary we're talking about actually did say that interesting thing is the model of startups and tech were never meant to be long-term.
Yeah.
They are short-term.
Yes.
But I guess they just figured we'll just keep going until the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
But then it also makes sense where there's a huge amount of burnout tied to tech companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting because whether tech companies came in with like free food, relaxed structure, whatever it is, and other sectors also started mimicking that. And then now that we are seeing tech companies now also go more towards
they're going back traditional.
They're going back to traditional like structures is a very odd thing, but also kind of shifts into our conversation about work culture.
Work culture.
Yes. Should I define? Okay, let me define first. So work culture is a collection of attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors that make up the regular atmosphere in a work environment. So different types of work culture is startup culture. And startup culture could be things move quickly, fail, try quickly, fail quickly. Very, I want to say agile type of...
it's always fast forwarding.
It's fast forwarding. So we try prototype, we try it, okay, then we go and reverse. Try prototype, we go test it, full cycle, we go in. And then when you have a minimal viable product, go into market, and then you'll fix as you go. Right? But very, very, very fast-paced. And very nimble, because ideally if you're a startup, you're small. So you can, decision making is quick. Because you're going through fewer people. It moves faster. It's again, you're a small company, few people, it's nimble. Then you have corporate culture, which is the long-standing institutions.
We think of the banking industry.
Yes,
how that looks like.
Yes. All very.
Also government.
Yes, government is the ultra. I'll talk about the OG corporate.
Yes.
Is government. Things have to go through an hierarchy and everything is very, it feels slow. So making changes is very difficult and it's like moving lava, whatever it is. Then you have like tech culture. Then there's things like remote work culture. That's a new thing coming up. It's a different types of culture. Just thoughts also around your experience with work culture.
Yes.
In the different spaces you have occupied over your career.
Yeah. So I have worked in 3 countries. I've worked in Kenya, Ireland, and now Switzerland. The work culture in Kenya, when I worked there, and I was an intern and then worked as a systems admin in a company.
What type of company?
It was an international company with external shareholding. Also, I think it was like 50-40, so 50 being... not 50, let me say 40-60. So most of the decisions were made from external...
outside.
Outside, yeah.
Okay.
And the good thing about this, when I was an intern, I actually predominantly worked in a Kenyan run company. It was sort of a startup, and it had a very it was good. I felt like as an intern I learned a lot because the company was very small. There was less people to talk to when decisions are being made. I was given more tasks. I learned a lot on the job. So that in that culture, more of a startup and Kenyan owned, I loved that environment. The problem with that environment is there was no money because we depended on projects, and if there were no projects coming in, it
There's
meant
no
like
funding,
sometimes we go for 2-3 months without a salary. Like it was that bad. But then
very bootstrap.
Yes. Then I now went into the company that was externally owned, and here there was structure. There were systems, there were things put in place, like you could not even buy a computer without having somebody make
Sign
a
offs
decision.
and sign-offs.
Yeah. And environment wise, I felt it was choking. Like it's not a work culture I'd want to go back to because it wasn't fun to work there. Yeah. And I didn't have a lot of freedom to experiment with my ideas. I felt very constricted. And then moved to Ireland for big tech. And here, this is where I experienced European way of working. And it felt very... nobody was telling me what needs to be done. I needed to know what needed to be done. To me, that was completely shocking.
Yeah.
That even for meetings, I needed to check on my calendar to know when my next meeting is.
You're not being monitored.
I'm not being monitored. Of course, there was structure around because we were doing support work. There was structure around that. But even me waking myself up, coming to work, making small decisions on the projects that I want to do, just going to my manager and telling them this is what I want to do. That was completely culture shock when it comes to work. Moving to Switzerland was almost the same, but here it was a bit slower. It's not as fast as I experienced in Ireland. And my team was smaller here. So small team. I worked less here. I was working less when I came here compared to how much time I was putting in when I was in Ireland. And I felt like I had a lot of work-life balance in Switzerland compared to all the other countries. When I was in Kenya, there was no work-life balance. Even I could not get a holiday. I had to tell my senior director, because I was a systems admin, that I want to take a week off, and I had to say where I will be, and I had to be available on phone. Even on weekends, if a system was down or something, I had to come into work, and that time was not compensated.
Yeah.
So in terms of compensation and work-life balance, I feel like Europe has done a better job, and I'm more relaxed about work. Yeah.
And how do you feel about work now? And if you were to, and just work culture, and if you were to say build your own company, is there a work culture you would subscribe to? Or is it just like how?
I don't know.
What are the good things you would take from all your experiences? And what are the things you were like, oh, I'm glad that's out?
Yeah, I'm glad that there's less micromanaging in the, especially in the work culture in Europe and mostly in tech companies. And I think that's one big takeaway I would take with me. Another thing is work-life balance. I remember when I moved to Ireland, because we were in this training program, there was a lot of positive feedback given to people who worked on the weekends. Like there would be people who would go work on this feature over a whole weekend, and then they come, they're like, I just had a little bit of time over the weekend, and they were told, good job, everybody, look at this feature that was done, like this new tool this person has built. I think that's not something I would encourage. You don't need to work that hard. I think that's my
takeaway.
My biggest takeaway, like it's never that serious.
It's not that serious.
Honestly, it's never that serious.
and is there if you're to look at the lens of say in Kenya, right? The times you were an intern or even working in the larger not employed, not as an intern. What was the gender split? And was there any things that stood out to you as being a female in that space? And then when you move into big tech, especially because you're in the engineering world, are there any things that you noticed about work culture as it pertains to minorities and female? Because you sit in the intersection of both, especially engineering, where that's minority of minority of minority.
Yeah, that's a very deep question, actually. Maybe it needs a lot of more reflection, but maybe talking from the two perspectives of Kenya, I've sat in spaces where I'm the only female. Let's start with that. And now even here, being a minority, in Kenya, I sensed that I was not taken seriously being the systems admin. And actually, my role, even though I was the only systems admin, I was not given that autonomy to make decisions. I was reporting to finance. And I always used to question myself, if there was somebody else who was not me, who was not a woman, would I still have this problem where I still have to report to somebody else? And small decisions like I could not make, so it was this bad. Sometimes I would come up with an idea, request, maybe tell my manager who's in finance, oh, I'm thinking of, let's do this. Let's introduce this kind of server. Like we can handle things better this way. They would ask me to write it down. They would go to their friends who are IT people in their community to actually consult and ask, is she making an informed decision with the way she's thinking?
Yeah.
And then maybe that thing, because they would always print these things out. There would be notes around it, But I know they didn't make those, because they didn't know anything about IT and systems administration.
Yeah.
So in that space, I felt I was not valued enough as a woman in tech, in that space and working there. But it paid the bills. It was consistent. I was coming from a place where I was not being paid for like 3 months to a place where I had a consistent salary. So
at least you're paying me.
Let me check where my bread is buttered. So I was happy just to pay my bills, but I was not really that happy. And coming into Europe and being a minority to the intersections of you're a woman and then you're coming from, you're African, that was quite tough, because other than cultural adoption, like sometimes we would be seated and there would be jokes made around the table that I have no clue what they mean, because I'm completely left out.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in Europe, so some of these things don't even make sense. Like I felt like an outsider a lot. But again, that's a very deep topic, I think, that might need a whole episode on the work, like experiences of our work environments. Probably you have had the same as me. Yeah.
No, I fully agree with that. Maybe we should probably make that a full episode on its own.
Yeah.
Just being in the workplace, especially if you're in a workplace where you're a minority, and a minority sliced in different ways. So, okay, so let me go through my trajectory of, because I had multiple internships. The two that stood out that were tied to my, let's say, my degree or my education. My first internship was at a surveying firm, old school surveying. So if you need your land subdivided, there's land issues, whatever. That's the firm I was in. I remember showing up, and I came in and I told the lady, like, yeah, I'm reporting for work. And she's like, what do you mean work?
Yeah.
I said, no, I'm reporting. I'm meant to start today. And she says, I don't think they were hiring another secretary. Let me check. I was like, no, I think I'm coming in as a survey intern.
Yeah.
She said, here. She said, hold on.
Yeah.
So she had to call. I remember I showed up early. So even nobody, it was just her who had got into the office. And the firm, that surveying firm had two co-partners. One was a surveyor and one was an urban planner. Yeah. So I remember she had to call one of them, and they're like, hey, yeah, we're getting an intern.
Yeah.
Now, I think also maybe they never looked at my first name. They were all surprised I was a female. So maybe it came in with like my last name and initials.
Yeah.
And then they think they assumed if you're a surveyor,
because your
you
last
must be a
name
dude.
actually sounds almost like a first name. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think also they assumed most survey. I don't know what they assumed.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I showed up. And so then I came in, and it was so interesting because they had to figure out like, where do I sit? Because it was my partners had their offices. Then they had 4 employees, full-time, like surveyors. And then I think 2 who were kind of part-time, in and out. And so the 4 were all in one room. So they were trying to figure out, can I sit there? Should I not sit there? So the first few days I was sitting just in the reception area. Until like they got me, then they were like, I was like, no, I can just give me a desk, and with a computer, I'm all right. And then part of there was back office work, and then there was field work. Now my degree is an intersection of geomatic engineering, so it's the study of basically the origin of surveying.
Yeah.
So all things. Then now also the upgraded version of it. So satellite engineering, geographic information systems, all that stuff. So I wanted the experience of, I didn't care. So I think they felt like, oh, with what you've done, I don't know if you should be here. I'm like, I've been this is where I've been assigned.
Yeah.
So you'll just have to take me as I am. Yeah. It is what it is. Yeah. So I used to have to fight to go into the field.
Because they didn't believe a woman. That was the space for a woman to be.
Yes. Yeah. So I used to fight to go to the field. And then they didn't want to go with me because they're like, if it's a place that's dangerous, and I get it. If it's like, I remember once we went to survey somewhere, and it was a land that had disputes. And it was disputes with Maasais.
Oh.
So there's men standing there with spears. And so these guys are telling me, like, if you're not here, we would just, chest out, just survey and go.
Yeah.
But you're here, so we also just can't be reckless because, we have a woman with us now. What do we do? Yeah. That was weird in itself. Then my second internship was at Africa Wildlife Foundation. They're a nonprofit, and they focused on elephant conservation. I know now they've expanded it to like zebras and other things. But essentially a big part of their work is they map out, the project list I joined was mapping out elephant corridors. Yeah. And then they also go into, many people have bought land that actually are elephant corridors.
Yeah.
So they go and negotiate to purchase that land back and give them land elsewhere or just compensate them. But I remember one of my projects was going to the field to like map out, like these are their elephant corridors. And then, or you're sent out by a researcher who's researching something very specific. Then you go into the field and do the geographic data collection for them. Then it ties to their research. That's the internship I loved. And I was like, if this is what work would be, I will take it, because it was what I had studied. They really embraced GIS, geographic information systems. All the researchers had such a big appreciation for the role of the work because it cut down their research time and all these different things. That department was headed by a lady, and I think maybe that was a big part of why I really loved the experience. She was very raw and honest because, again, most of the researchers were men. And her department had 3 people. She was the only female. And she had risen to the ranks, but she used to work every single day. Every single day. And I think that's a point I was just like, but she was honest that, you have to put in the work and you have to put in.
You have to do double the effort.
Yes. And I think that's the part that made me a bit afraid of going into that, like even after university, because seeing her lifestyle, I was like, I don't know if I want it that bad. So then post-university, I went to big tech. And I started in Kenya. So in Kenya, it was very autonomous, it was shocking how the company had gotten big, but because we were a new office and they were new on the continent and were given this responsibility of like, map the continent. Somebody could just ask you a question like, how do you think we should do blah, blah, blah? and you say, oh, I think we should do.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, here's the money, go do that. So it was shocking that I was like, somebody's giving me responsibility. I'm not even paying. I'm still in my mother's house. I'm not even paying my own rent.
And here you are mapping
Yeah, you're
Africa.
asking me to make decisions about things.
Yeah.
So there was that was really dope, really amazing. And then I remember the first time I started traveling as part of our work now, and to interact with other people from the same company, but from the other offices.
Yeah.
And I remember like when we start hearing questions like, oh, you're in the Kenya office. Oh, okay. We have people there. Yeah, okay. I wonder, did we lower our interviewing, but like our hiring standards to be able to hire people there? Yeah. Someone is saying this to you in your face. And I was like, wait, what? What is happening? And then once I now left and moved to Europe, I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's what they meant.
Okay. Is that, I think, is where the whole, being a minority, and then it's like, I guess there's something about, and I always say this, and I don't know whether people agree with this or not, but I feel like there's being minority, like being Black. Then there's being African Black, that's looked at differently.
Yeah.
Then there's being African and educated in an African university. That's looked at differently. And so it was just, once you start slicing and dicing and you're like, damn. The way people would just question the things you do, and you'd find out after the fact that you're working with someone, and then they went to verify something you said with your manager. For a manager to say, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And you're like, oh, so they thought I was not okay.
Yeah.
It was, let me tell you, that part of big tech, I was just like, hey, okay.
Maybe one day we dive into.
One day we'll dive into that. But then I think it also made me realize that inherently, especially when I got into big tech, there's also things that they talk about work culture, but I think work culture is also, it's a very difficult, I don't know if it's a difficult or I think it's a space that's not well managed. I think it's a term that's thrown out just willy-nilly. But if I give the example of spaces I've been in, where this work culture is defined based on a lifestyle or an environment that is not applicable to many people. So as much as I can work for this organization, their work culture is something that is been defined by 10 people who thought that, oh, wouldn't it be fun if we were bring our full selves to work? And if we can, but then your full selves for this group of 10 people, maybe who went to Ivy League or whatever the hell it is, not everyone subscribes to that. So sometimes work culture I can see how the idea is to create this standard, if you will, but it's a soft standard or an environment that is meant to be inclusive and, I don't know, some sort of soft operating principles, but at the same time, they can also be the most exclusive.
Yeah, I do find like when you describe work culture, it's very relative. It's however anyone wants to interpret it. It honestly could mean anything for this, not even the whole company, even for small teams. Work culture is completely different from what is. Yes.
And and specifically when you go into like the soft part of it, it's different where you say where the company is built is that there's an hierarchy here. So if you have a thought, you have to go to your manager who goes to this person who goes to, that's how it is, fine. Or it's flat, but then be clear that decision makers sit here and this sits here and this thing. Okay. But then keep it at that versus trying to make it very fluffy. And, we've seen organizations where it's like, oh, you're like, it's a family and you have to align with our principles and their thoughts. And it's like, that's an area, it's like, just don't. Because I think it creates something that's not sustainable. And I think, I feel like we've not touched on the burnout as much as I want. But I maybe this is going to be again a separate
Maybe we can focus on why we work, and
Yeah.
then we'll talk about
Yeah.
burnout
Yeah.
at some point
Yeah.
in time.
yeah. Actually, maybe the next episode is going to be about burnout.
Yeah.
And how this is. I don't think it's a language we had or observed with previous generations, and for some reason with the millennials, it's something that is happening at such
Yeah.
a high rate.
Yeah.
So I think we'll go into that. We'll go into that later. But before we wrap up, I wanted to ask DJ just about your experiences in terms of work culture, especially given that you're in like entertainment industry. It's a very different industry from.
Like, I'm lucky that I don't, listening to your guys' story, I'm lucky I don't have to deal with people that much. There's only 2 people that I have to deal with throughout my DJ. I started as an intern in Ireland for RTE. I did that for a few years while working as a fuel distributor at Texaco.
What is a fuel distributor?
I put
You like pumping gas?
pumping
Okay,
gas,
got
that's
it. But on LinkedIn,
Yeah, LinkedIn.
you're, I mean, downstream
Downstream.
oil distribution.
Oil distribution. Yeah, and then I was doing that, and then I did the internship for 4 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
4 years.
It's
4
supposed to be
years.
that long, or
Yeah.
it's just, oh wow.
Well, you see, for 4 years I did the internship, but I got work through that with the DJ work. So
So the DJing grew.
Yeah, the DJing grew
Okay.
while I was doing the internship there in RTE. So, and then I finally got my own show there, which also made the DJing stuff get bigger. Through that, there's only
Just
one or
wait,
2.
don't skate over that. You were the first black DJ,
Yeah,
radio
on
DJ
national radio station
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Ireland.
in Ireland.
Wow.
Yeah, national
on.
radio. It was fun. It was
Yeah.
cool. I think a lot of people. First few months, I was warned that it's a very harsh industry. So a lot of people will have unkind things to say over the text line or something like that. But it comes with the territory. It's either you want it or you don't want it. So we did that. Got a lot of work through the radio station. I was making more money DJing than I was at the radio station.
Yeah.
So through that, got into DJing here in Switzerland in 2016 or so. Then the guy who used to employ me in one club in Ireland is the one who moved me over here to Switzerland
Yeah.
to work for him in his clubs and bars here.
Yeah.
Moved over. And I'm like, that's why I was saying, I'm lucky I don't have to deal with that many people. It's only the boss and one of the managers that I have to deal with. The rest of the people, I don't care.
Your people, but your fans are your people.
Yeah,
You have to
that's true.
entertain them,
That's
yes.
true. That's true. That's true. But I'm saying, as far as work colleagues,
Yeah.
that I don't have to. This whole dealing with emotions and stuff.
Yeah.
I can't. I've got no.
I wonder something.
Yeah.
This could be a very odd question. Because we know the music industry is heavily influenced by black culture. Do you think you being a black DJ
100%.
opens, people see you, they're like, he's black, he must be really good.
100%. He must be really good.
Yeah.
For them to move him from Ireland. Yeah, no, 100%.
This is a black privilege they don't talk about.
black- yeah.
It is. There are people who walk into the bar.
Yeah.
And if they don't see someone who's some sort of tropical,
Yes.
you know what I mean?
They're like, nah.
No, that's not the spot.
it's not
Yeah.
popping.
No, I don't know. I might have to edit this part. But,
No, space.
Be honest.
But once they see you, they say,
Yeah,
it's
that's
gonna
gonna be a good
decent
time.
night.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
I think I'm just. And plus, I enjoy it. Sometimes the music that I play is not something I'd listen to day to day, but just to see the people's reaction, it's like a drug.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. When someone looks at you and then he nods your head, it's like a fist pump in the air or something.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's a great
Your
feeling.
job has instant gratification.
Yes,
Like you
yes.
can immediately see the impact of what you're doing.
Yeah. It's like I sang the song. You know what I mean?
It reminds me of sorry to cut you, but that instant gratification, because I worked in support for a long time.
Yeah.
When you help somebody and then they appreciate it, and you can see that you've made their day in a way. That is everything. That to me is
you had
everything.
this, so that is something that you loved about being in
but
like
in support, yes.
damn.
IT support,
Interesting.
yes.
Yeah.
When it's like you've solved a problem.
Yes.
You know, I've just been playing music here. You know, that's it. But you know, it's crazy, and you know, a lot of the time I got to meet a lot of you know, people that guided me in what I wanted to do. You say, find something you love, and you'll never have to work a day in your life. You know, so I don't go to work. As I said, I'd do it for free.
Yeah.
But
I hope your employer,
I
your
aspire
employer
for
should
that.
hear this. Your employer should hear you saying he can do it for free. Ah,
I'd do
why are
it
we
for free.
paying?
But it's just that these Jordans they're not free.
They're not cheap.
I aspire for that. Actually, that should be the reason for work. Actually.
Yeah, and I'm not like
Yeah.
sometimes I look at myself and I'm not motivated to become super rich or super famous. No. For some reason, I don't know why. I think that's something I lack as well, because I'm so happy within what I do. If there becomes, I've seen the higher level of DJing where it becomes now pressure, you know, hardcore pressure. And you're like, yo, do you want that sort of pressure? It stops being fun.
Yeah.
You know, I want to enjoy every single set. I want to be able to high five and fist pump someone. Although, you know, I say that I've seen the big stages and everything. Those are high pressure situations that, you know, a lot of riding on this, you know, it's like Lewis Hamilton in the car. He's by himself in that car, but there's a lot of other people.
Riding on this shoulder.
On
That's
the,
true.
you know.
That's true.
So, yeah, enjoy it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I guess that's what we should. I mean, that's a privilege to be able to
Yeah.
be in a space where, like, I don't work. Like, I just, because you do what you love every day. It's not work. It's just you channeling your passion, and
I love it.
and it happens to also be where your
Your food comes from.
yeah.
That's true.
And the fact that even when you're doing that, if you're working on something that you love, the pressure from outside is not weighing you down, because I think most of us have worked in spaces where we love what we do, but everything around us is too stressful.
Yeah.
It stops being fun.
Yeah, that's true. And I do wish we lived in and I hope, I mean, we happen now to live in a country where there's a lot more tied to what you like and what you know, the things you love to do. I was giving, yesterday, we'd gone to buy meat. Meat is very expensive in Switzerland. So
You need to buy it strategically.
there's a place that they think they sell to restaurants, and it's like an hour drive out. So we'd gone, it's like a large space, and in the back, it's large doors, and it's like fridge rooms. What are they called? Cold rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a butcher.
It's a large scale butcher. And the owner yesterday, his son was there. Little small boy, he's what, 11?
Yeah.
10 or 11. And he was there, and he was like, you know, the owner had given one of the guys responsibility to like show him what to do. And he was there like sweeping the floors.
wow.
And then he
Moving the
asks
meat,
like,
yeah.
what should I do? He carries the meat and does things like that. And there's no, and I'm like, that's so dope. One, yes, he's getting introduced to family business. But to him, it's like, I've seen my dad be a butcher. There's no, it feels here, let's take out things like the banking industry and some of those, that there's I guess because the country is stable and certain structures are working, it sort of takes away some of these things around the social hierarchy when it comes to work, right? So here you'll make a shit ton of money if you're an electrician.
Yeah.
You'll make so much money if you're anything that requires you using your
Trade
hands.
jobs. Yeah.
Trade jobs, you literally bill for your time.
Mechanics.
So blue collar jobs, as they call them, they actually make you more money nowadays, especially in these countries, than what you would think a white collar job does.
Yeah, makes a lot of money.
Yeah.
But where we've come from, like the trade jobs are not well paid,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
and they are looked down upon. That's
Yes.
another thing. Here
That's the
they
thing.
don't look
Exactly.
down upon.
That's true.
There's also a social hierarchy with
Yes.
it, and it's like,
Yeah.
Anyone with grease on their hands and overalls here,
Yes.
they are
Get paid.
making money.
yeah,
Yes.
Like mechanics.
Yeah.
Oh my.
a good amount of money.
Like
So it's
yeah.
So I would love to see a world, but also like in our home countries, that's something that we are able to grow into.
Yeah.
Whereby one, you're driven more by what you're passionate about,
yeah.
and less by, or if I don't go into this space, I'm going to be broke, right? Like I hope for a world where that's what we are able to do, and I really hope maybe that's maybe a good byproduct of living in the digital age
Yeah.
now, because I guess it gives you, people are able to use, like, for example, I see these guys on Instagram, and I see a few of them who are artists, and then so they'll draw pictures and then they will show them on Instagram, and they get so many people buying their stuff from a different part of the world, right? And these are kids or people who, if they're in Kenya and they're just hanging their drawings by the side of the road, they're not really making that much money.
Yeah.
But then being able to have like social media to be able to display, people can see, oh, this person is talented, things like that. So I hope that helps change things, and people just are able to live in a world where what you're driven more by what you're less motivated by survival,
Yeah.
and more motivated by purpose
And passion.
and passion.
Yeah.
Like I really hope that's a world we can go into.
that should be the reason why we work.
That should be. Yeah. But yeah, we will do a follow-up episode on burnout.
Work and
And then and then we will talk about being black in the workplace.
Actually, some of those things are the ones that trigger burnout.
Hey, I don't know if that one is burnout or it's just it's like sometimes work is psychological warfare. Let me tell you. It's so funny because we used to work in big tech, and then there used to be these questions about psychological safety. I was like, I don't know if this question is ever meant for me, because no, I never feel psychologically safe.
Yeah, you're always on the defensive.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
anyway.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
Good episode.
Wishing everyone purpose and passion
Passion
as your
for work.
motivation for work.
May it be the reason
May it
why
be the
you
reason.
work.
Yes. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I need to find a job where my blackness is going to be
Your privilege.
my privilege.
Black privilege.
Is it too late to learn how to